Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. My name is Bilal. Thank you for coming along today and joining us for another UA92 virtual event. We're really excited to have so many of you with us. Our current applicants, future applicants, and those of you who are thinking about university and still yet to make a decision, but also people from across industry who might be considering coming back to higher education and wanting to hear about how you can plan for success and be successful from our guest speaker today. We're really fortunate to have been able to put this together and to speak to you virtually through Zoom. We'd love to have had you on our campus today in the heart of Greater Manchester. Unfortunately, with the current pandemic, we can't do that. So to give you a taste of our facilities and our campus, we've got a short video that will give you an insight into the place that we're all inspired by and where our students and our colleagues call home. So I'll move on to the campus video to start with, and then I'll give you a short introduction to UA92, and then we'll get into the interview that we're here for today. So we'll go into that campus video now. Okay, thank you very much for that. So that gives you a little insight into what we and where we call home. We're based in Trafford. We've got a fantastic location just down the road from Old Trafford Football Stadium and across the road from Lancashire County Cricket Club. So what is UA92? I know there's a number of people that will have joined us today who might have come to our previous event, so you may have heard from our Principal and CEO, Professor Craig Gaskell. So I'll try my best to give you a quick overview, but not go into too much detail. And for those of you who are new, welcome. We're really happy to have you here with us today. You can find all of the details around UA92 on our website. That's www.ua92.ac.uk. But we're also on Snapchat, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, and there's lots of resources. So however you learn, however you take in information, go and have a look at us on social media and on our website and get the information that you need. Equally, our team are on hand and available to help you however they can. So, what is UA92? Well, the best way to describe it is through this visual that you're seeing on your screen now. UA92 is a unique partnership in that on one side, and if we look at the bottom of this graph, on one side we have Lancaster University, who are 50% shareholders in University Academy 92. And what Lancaster University have done is brought their pioneering academic excellence, that real credibility. They're one of the top 10 universities across all league tables year on year on year. They've in 2 consecutive years won UK Times Higher Education University of the Year and then Times Higher Education International University of the Year. An incredible university with lots of rich history, lots of academic credibility. And so all of our degrees at UA92 are Lancaster University degrees. Degrees that are known the world over, and every student that comes and studies with us will leave with a degree and a classification and a certification equal to that of anybody that goes to Lancaster. And so Lancaster and the team there support us in ensuring that we have a completely credible and rigorous academic core to all of our programs, and that we're delivering real world-class academic learning within our classrooms and within UA92. So on the other side, and this is where the UA92 difference really comes in, we have the class of 92, and they are 50% shareholders in UA92 as well. And so what do the class of 92 bring, and where did the idea and the concept come from? Well, it came from the class of 92 and Gary Neville, and their biggest input amongst everything else is about taking an approach that is very much industry and employer led, and it's about career preparedness, so that when our graduates leave their studies, not only have they got that real academic core of the theory, and so they understand the different aspects of the industry that they're going into and the roles and the responsibilities and all the detail behind what it is that they do, but equally they understand how to apply that in the practical world. And anybody across industry will tell you the real world and the business world is much different to your lecture theatres and your classrooms. So it's really important that our students leave with a whole wealth of insight and knowledge and experience that is going to put them on the best put them in the best possible position to go out into industry and be successful. So the class of 92, Gary Neville sits on our board, is very active in the development of UA92. There are two co-founding shareholding partners, and they're essentially the DNA of UA92. But then we've got this third group of partners at the top. And if we move on to the next screen, here are some names of some of our wider industry partners. And our partners are very much involved in the process of delivering our studies, our learning, but also in coming up with and helping us to shape our curriculum and our programs of study. So we do a lot of co-curricular design with our partners. Microsoft have been working with us alongside other partners to develop our computer science course, for example. And so the idea really is to have industry work side by side with our academics and our academic team to create courses that are going to fulfill that core principle of career preparedness and ensuring that our graduates are in the best possible position when they leave us and go into the world of work. So some big names on here, we've got KPMG as well, who are big partners of ours. Our accounting and finance and business students frequently visit their offices in Manchester and do a lot of work with them. And we've got various other partners that you can see that are involved very heavily in what we do at UA92, and we really, really welcome their insights, and our students are benefiting from the experiences that they are passing on and sharing. So what sets UA92 apart, and I'm going to focus a little bit on the input from the class of 92 here. It's about looking at higher education in exactly the same way as other higher education institutions do, giving you that solid, credible degree that you can use to help you in ascertaining a role after you graduate and going on to doing the things that you want to do, that step on your career ladder. But for us, I think the first day of your career begins when you join us at University Academy 92. And so why do we say that? It's because we put a real emphasis on your development. And so we look at your educational journey as a growth journey, and not just you coming in and learning a lot of incredible stuff, doing a lot of exams and understanding the theory of what your subject choice is, and then not understanding anything particularly around how that works in the real world, or not having the opportunity to really grow as an individual, because that's what education is to us. It's about a journey of growth. And so character development and personal development is at the heart of what we do. And we do that through our target talent curriculum, which is a whole set of modules that every single student at UA92 will undertake, regardless of what degree you're on. You all come together and you all learn together, and you look at things like resilience, you look at things like financial literacy, digital literacy, which at the moment, the more digitally literate businesses are, the better they're doing at this moment in time. And so there's lots and lots of skills that you'll pick up through that. And I would urge you all to go onto our website, have a look at that target talent curriculum, because that is a real distinct difference in how UA92 delivers its education. Okay, so talking more about that distinct approach, what else separates us? Well, we do things a little bit different, and our model is slightly different, and much better than I can explain. There's a short video that I'm going to play for you in a second that will give you a really quick 1 minute, 30-second insight into our model. And there's lots of questions you might have, so please feel free to get in touch. This is a really quick and brief fly through. We don't want to take up any more of your time than is absolutely necessary. So if you have any questions, get in touch with our team. We'll be more than happy to answer. But a few points really here to focus on. We have focused learning, so all of our learning is done in 5-week blocks and plus a week of your TTC, that character and personal development. So in 6-week blocks, all of your exams, all of your coursework, anything that is related to assessment is done within those blocks. And I say exams, and I don't know why I say exams, because we don't have those traditional end of year exams. All of your assessment is contained within that 5 weeks per module that you're studying. And so you don't have to worry about end of year exams. You can do one module, move on and do the next module and so on and so forth and progress through your degree in that way. Now, we're also offering the flexibility of studying either in the morning or the afternoon. So you can still work, you can still engage. If you're an athlete and you're engaged in sports, if you've got childcare or care responsibilities, or if you need to work to sustain yourself through education, then our model really allows you to do that. It gives you the flexibility to work around your lifestyle. And with the blocks and the modules, the way that they work, if you wanted to come and do a module, but unfortunately for one reason or another, because life happens, right, you can't do the next module, then we have the flexibility to work around you and your lifestyle. So it's all about enabling you as best we can to progress and to move yourself on and climb that ladder through education as a route to do that. And finally, our September, November and January start dates mean that you can start at 3 different points in the year. So again, that added extra flexibility within that model to really complement and work around your lifestyle, which opens up, we think, access to a whole host of people to come and join us at UA92. Okay, so I'll stop there. You'll probably find this video is much better than I can be in explaining our model and everything that we do. There's so much to talk to you about. I could spend the next hour if I had it. But instead, I'll pass you over to this video, have a watch, and then I'll see you in about 1 minute and 30 seconds. There we go. I told you, much better explaining our entire model, much more brief than I can ever be. So there you go. That gives you a quick insight into the overall offer from University Academy 92. So what are the key points here? And again, you can see on your screen our website there. You've got a whole host of detail there and across our social media. But that distinct approach to higher education, a flexible model that allows you to work around your lifestyle. So no matter who you are, no matter what your background, no matter what your commitments, your interests, you can fit your education around your lifestyle with UA92. But equally, what we do offer within that flexible model, we don't don't sacrifice the quality and the credibility of your academic experience. These are Lancaster University degrees. And what we add into that approach to higher education is the absolute focus on growth and that character and personal development and all those skills and tools and strategies that we all need in order to navigate, not through just our professional lives, but also our personal lives. So it's a really, really unique approach to higher education and a really unique setup with Lancaster and the class of 92. And that's how we've been able to reach where we have today. Right, so that's all from me. What I'll do now is I'll introduce you to our next speakers. We are very lucky to have with us today the chair of our board, somebody that I get to work with and learn from regularly, Dr. Marnie Millard, OBE, who is the chair of our board, but is also the chief executive of Nichols PLC, who are the custodians, better known as Vimto, the iconic Manchester brand. If you've not heard of Vimto, where have you been? If you've not had a glass of Vimto, where have you been? And not only are they an iconic Manchester brand, but an international brand as well. And we're really fortunate to have Marnie on the team supporting us to develop UA92 and to talk to us about success today. And equally, we're really fortunate to have one of our pioneer students, Bobby, who's our media and journalism student at UA92, who is going to take this interview. So I'll stop there. I'll hand over to the experts. Bobby, over to you, and over to you, Marnie. Thank you both.
Thank you for the introduction, Bilal. It's a pleasure to be able to sit down virtually with you today, Marnie. And how are you getting on during the current lockdown?
Yes, I'm surviving very nicely. Thank you, Bobby. Got my hair done and my makeup on today. In light of the fact that we have a virtual audience, so that's nice, but all good this end, thank you.
That's brilliant here. So shall we just get straight into the questions?
Absolutely.
So firstly, could you tell our audience and me a little bit about your career journey, which led you to the position of CEO at Nichols and Vimto?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think it's interesting, we'll probably come on to this a little bit later. I didn't actually go to university. 40 years ago, a very different place to where we are today with university education being more accessible, although here at UA92 we have a desire to improve that further. But 40 years ago you either had to be really, really bright or extremely wealthy, of which I wasn't extremely bright, and we weren't wealthy, so I didn't go to university. So straight out of college after my A-levels, I had a number of roles, starting off in telesales, brand marketing, actually selling out on the road as a regional representative. I have to say though, during that time I did always continue my education, so I went to night school and did all my marketing qualifications, so there's always been a desire throughout my career to continue to learn. I had 3 years off to have my children, Alex and Katie, and Katie's a teacher and she's watching today, so hi Katie. After that I was in a very fortunate position of really deciding what I wanted to do and evaluate where my career went next. And I ended up joining a soft drinks company over in Nelson in Lancashire. I was their first ever sales exec. I ended up being there 11 years and I became the sales and marketing director. And we were a manufacturer for all the supermarket own label soft drinks. So in that role, I had lots of exposure to manufacturing, purchasing, brand marketing, category management, working very closely with Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, Morrisons. So a really, really broad role, which I'll come back later, because that broadness of role, while I didn't anticipate it at the time, was really, really helpful as I moved on through my career. After that, I probably did the toughest stint of my career in that I went to run a factory up in the northeast in Durham. So I went from being a very commercially minded individual to taking on a whole factory with just short of 200 people. So a very different proposition for me. After that, I went back into commercial again. Before 2012, I was headhunted to join Nichols, and that was a brilliant opportunity in that historically I'd worked for privately owned businesses, and this was a PLC, so that brings a very different dynamic in terms of the city, governance, and being truly responsible to a broad shareholder base. I could actually move back home because for many years I'd been commuting up and down the M6 and M5 down to Taunton in Somerset, which was a heck of a journey. And actually for the first time working for a purely branded business, because historically, whilst I dealt in own label and had lots of exposure doing work with the likes of Innocent, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, this was the first time to get my hands on a truly iconic brand, which Bilal described very beautifully ahead of this interview. So I joined them in 2012 as the UK Managing Director, and progressed to CEO in May 2013, and have been there ever since. And a fabulous company, fabulous brand, but most importantly, the most fabulous people who I have to give a shout out to today, because we've taken our total business to remote working, everybody seamlessly, and not one transaction's gone awry, and the business is just running as if we were all in the office together. So big shout out to those guys today.
Well, that's a remarkable journey, and it shows that you've got such a broad wealth of experience. And I just wanted to point out to everyone before I move to the next question that if anyone does have any more questions for myself or Marnie, you can use the chat function to send us those, and I'll ask them as we go along. So next question, who, if anyone, one in particular, a few people, who was your inspiration along the way?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question, Bobby, and I think I'd sort of like to link it not just to inspiration to me, but perhaps people who mentor you along your journey. And one of the things I've found is that there are different people that come into your life or your career at certain points and potentially can help you over challenges or questions that you have. And, you know, having a mentor, whether at your university or in your first job, your second job, I think can add tremendous value. But be open to having that mentor, and be open to having a different one for different reasons and at different times of your career. And I think it's a bit of the same with inspiration. And three people really come to mind. One is Stephen Orchard, who was my sales and marketing director at my very first brand management role at Premier Foods. I was looking after Haywood's Pickles. Very lucky. I've always worked on brands that I love. I love pickles. And one of the things that inspired me about Stephen is that it is absolutely fine to be a good person in business. You don't have to run roughshod over people or trample over people to further your career. And he taught me that relationships are absolutely critical. And yes, technology is an enabler, but you know, I'm spending my life on these Zoom calls at the moment, and that interaction with my colleagues, with customers, with partners, with suppliers, and building those relationships, you know, is incredibly important all the way through your career. And he's just a really good person. And, you know, I hold him up really highly in terms of how to do business well. And I'm still in touch with him now all the way through my career. Our paths have ironically crossed. He's worked for competitors. I've worked for the opposite side. I've actually worked for him much later in life. So there are certain people that really stand out to you. I chaired the CBI for the Northwest region for 3 years, which was a very different seat for me to hold, because you're in a business world, you're representing business in the Northwest. The CBI is based in London. It is an apolitical organisation, but clearly working in a political environment. And as I joined the CBI to chair the Northwest, we had the referendum. So, you know, Brexit was a key topic through my 3 years. We had the national living wage come in, and we had the apprenticeship levy. So it was a very interesting time to chair the Northwest region. And Dame Carolyn Fairburn, she joined to be the Director General at the CBI exactly the same time as I took the chair. What an amazing woman, you know, really extraordinary at listening, dissecting information, really pulling together difference of opinion to get consensus, and then having the ability to then rock up to number 10 or number 11, whatever she happened to be working on at the time, and really making sure she got the opinion of business over to the government, and getting them to listen, which was incredibly important. A very impressive lady. And then the other person, again through the CBI, who I met, was Dame Vivian Hunt, and she looks after the whole of McKinsey in the UK. And I guess, again, her listening skills really impressed me, and her ability to actually assimilate a huge amount of information that's being thrown at her, to sort of, you know, represent back to the audience, but in a very succinct and clear way. Because my experience of being involved with wider organisations, political groups bigger than Vimto, is that a lot of people use a lot of words to actually say very little, and actually get into the crux of that, I think is really important. So sort of 3 people for different reasons that, you know, I really look up to and have learned things from as a result of being able to work with them.
It's really interesting to hear what you say there, because as a UA92 student already, obviously I'm in my first year, my mentor, Bilal, has actually connected me to people who act as role models in industry, which is really useful. So Yvonne Harrison, who's watching now, has been a brilliant role model to have, and it'll be great to see how that relationship can develop over the next few years of my course. So I'll get on to the next question, and it's about obstacles on your journey. And just to echo what Abula said in the chat function, so the question is about obstacles, and Abul's also added, if your confidence has been knocked back in the past, he's linked it to students, and how would you be motivated to study again and improve yourself after facing a setback? Yeah,
I mean, I think rather than an obstacle, I think the biggest challenge in my career I would share with you is coming back to running the factory in the Northeast. So I joined as the managing director for the UK in a really large international soft drinks company. I was the first woman MD that had been appointed in a group that had factories in Finland, Germany, France, Spain, Poland, Italy. So not only was I a female, there were lots of cultural differences at the leadership table, which sometimes made communication quite challenging for the chief executive. And I could spend hours and lots of funny stories about how we've debated certain words and what they might mean to the Germans and what they might mean to us over here, just as an example. But what I found once I started running that factory is that operationally it was in really poor shape. I've always liked factories because working in own label, if you're sitting with a buyer at Tesco, they fully expect you to understand the ramifications of changing a bottle, changing recipe. So my knowledge was already very broad as far as operations was concerned. And I love factories, I always have done. I like to understand how things work and how things are made, particularly things we eat and drink. So I joined that as MD, but with a very commercial focus. And as I say, it became very clear quite quickly that the factory was in poor shape. So I had to recruit a commercial director to replace me effectively in that space. and set about how to learn to run a factory. I did that for 5 years. I think it's fair to say that that was almost a 24/7 role. It was very all-consuming, and the amount of support I needed from suppliers and partners was extraordinary. And I managed to land multi-million-pound capital investment projects. I learned by lots of reading and seminars, you know, the principles of lean manufacturing, what preventative maintenance meant, how we should deploy a really robust health and safety procedure, because that was lacking, and clearly in a factory that is completely unacceptable, and so on and so forth. Also having to negotiate with a very tricky union on site that were very rightly representing the rights of the workers, whom before the acquisition of the factory by Refresco had been really poorly looked after, both training, reward. So a very different proposition. I had to dig really deep, lots of meetings where I felt very uncomfortable and out of my depth. But I guess during that period, I really learned how to reach out for help, even though I'd got the #1 job. And I would reach out either with suppliers, partners, or indeed people around me at the management team. And through that period, really added skills to my repertoire that I haven't ever been exposed to before. So I think that determination to prove to myself that I could run a factory successfully was incredibly important. Probably the most resilient I've ever had to be in my career. But fundamentally, I'd got 200 people working alongside me for whom I was responsible in terms of, you know, they had families, they had homes and children. And just a funny little story, you know, the majority of my colleagues were on the shop floor, and we had 10 production lines there working for Innocent, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, all sorts of big important brands, being responsible for their quality on an everyday basis. And, you know, I thought, how am I going to connect with these guys? A predominantly male workforce. And interestingly, and I guess probably a little bit of connection to Gary here, is up in the Northeast, you know, football is the heart of everything. You know, whether you support Borough, Sunderland, Newcastle, you know, football is the subject matter to get under your skin. And not least of all, you know, if we needed to work overtime, if I wasn't aware of what the fixture list was going to be on a Saturday, you know, they would have just laughed at me if I wanted to do overtime on a Saturday. Very happy to do it on a Sunday if the you know, the local derby was on a Saturday. And I guess the big learning for me there was, you know, you've really got to find a way, wherever you are in your career, of talking to people, not how you think you should talk to them, but how they want you to talk to them. And just actually watching Match of the Day and just getting my head around, you know, who was managing Newcastle or Sunderland, what was going on. It made me feel confident to open a conversation with those guys on the production line. And once you opened that conversation, then they would start to share with you, look, this is a problem, Marnie. You know, we're asked to run this product and it, you know, it gives us these problems. Our wastage is higher here. We need some training, or we really need the back of the line looking at by the engineers. You know, it's holding us up. And it was through that very, very simple piece of dialogue that I could then get into the heart of what was going on in the factory, and then actually start to put some corrective actions and help the guys get that plant up and running. So I did that for 5 years. I sorted it. And, you know, I woke up one morning and I said to Dan, my husband, right, that's it. I've had enough of running a factory. I've proved I can do it. And I'm going to go back to an area now that you know, I know is good for me. And the interesting thing I often say to Alex and Katie, or any students or any young people I'm working with, sometimes you have to go through stuff to understand what you don't want to do, to allow you to be more focused on what you do want to do. And if you've been through that situation that's been tough, it's been hard, it's really stretched you, I can promise you that when you get further on in your career, as I've done, you'll look back and think that time was so valuable, that learning was so insightful, because whatever situation you're in, you can take away learnings from it, Bobby. And I think that's really, really important.
I can definitely understand that, because we have had quite a few guest speakers on our course, which is another useful experience that we've had during this year. And from those people, just asking them questions, you can kind of get an idea of, do I want to go into this industry? And I've kind of been opened up to kind of job roles that I wouldn't have even thought about, that now I'm thinking about. So that's been really useful.
Yeah, I talk about the grocery industry a lot, and we have our benevolent fund is called Grocery Aid, and we have an arm of that which is called Working Options, where I go and speak to sixth formers for exactly that reason. Because if you look at the food and drink industry, you know, you can sort of get a little polarized in your view of what the opportunities are. Yet if you start opening young people's minds to you know, the fact that there's merchandising, there's analytics, there's data, there's forecasting, there's supply chain, you know, there's loads of elements to the soft drinks industry or the food industry that are really, really very interesting, but sometimes are not available for young people to understand. So I think you're right. I think getting that insight, going to listen to somebody, getting into other businesses, even if it's for a short amount of time, if that can help you frame your thoughts negatively or positively, they're both valuable, Bobby.
Absolutely. And on the back of all that hard work that you spoke about and overcoming obstacles, having to put up with watching Match of the Day, it all paid off when you received your OBE. And I just want to know what that experience was like for you.
Well, I have to say, it still feels like a surreal day. And when the letter came through the post, you're not allowed to tell anybody, you know, other than Dan, who was aware of it. And when the letter came, I was away as usual. And he said, do you want to open this? It looks really, do you want me to open it? It looks really official. And I thought I'd got a fine for going in the bus lane again in Cardiff. Finsbury is a company I work for in a non-exec role, and the head office is in Cardiff. And for some reason, I always manage to go down the bus lane, no matter how many times I've been. So I thought, oh, here we go, it's a bus lane fine. And it wasn't, it was a letter from the then Prime Minister and on behalf of the Queen, and I just was absolutely lost for words, which as anybody who knows me is quite unusual. The day was just magnificent. We drew up in front of Buckingham Palace. I don't know if any of you watched The Crown, but every time the Prime Minister turns up for his audience weekly with the Queen, you go under this canopy. And as we went under it, I just said to Alex and Katie and Dan, they were with me, gosh, this is where every Prime Minister for hundreds of years has come every week to have the audience with the Queen, and we're stepping out. It was Prince William, which I was absolutely blown away with, because to meet the future king was simply magnificent. It's probably the most nerve-wracking and the sweatiest my palms have ever been, because I've never learnt to curtsy before, and you're doing that all on the spot. I was blown away by how informed Prince William was of me, of Vimto, to the extent that we have a big business in the Middle East. We have a factory in Saudi Arabia with our partner. And we'd recently employed 60 women in that factory. We were one of the first businesses to move forward with having females in the workplace, which in Saudi Arabia, national Saudi women working in the workplace is a huge step forward in their history. And he was aware of that. So again, you know, one of my points probably to anybody who's listening, you know, the ability to prepare for any meetings, any interviews, any conferences you're going to attend, You know, he knew me, and he knew the brand, and he knew what we were doing. Although you'll never believe it, he confessed that he was brought up on Ribena, not Vimto. So we had to get some to the palace pretty quickly. I think my overriding, lasting emotion around that day, though, Bobby, is as a parent, and you're all really young listening in, there probably are some parents out there. At the end of the day, you know, our job is to nurture, prepare our children, and ultimately, as a result of that, you know, you're so proud of them. I think for me, what I hadn't expected is, one, how excited Alex and Katie would be to come with me. I thought they'd be a bit nonplussed about going to Buckingham Palace, but not at all. But secondly, it was so emotional for me to see how proud they were of me. And I guess the times when I've missed plays because I've been at work, or we've been rushing around trying to get the homework done. You know, as a working parent, you know, you've got checks and balances to make. It's a juggle, and you're always trying your best. I think as a mom, that feeling of guilt that you're never doing everything really well is with you always, and you have to find a way of coping and dealing with that. But I guess that day it made it all worthwhile for me as a mom when I saw how proud they were.
It's great to have that ambition for them as well, to see where, you know, what hard work gets you in the end, and it's a great lesson for them.
Thank you.
And on the note of young people, what are the main things you've learned from your ongoing engagement with Manchester's young people, and what is your opinion of Manchester as a place for opportunity for young people?
Yeah, well, I think in the words of Tony Walsh, Manchester is the place. I think Manchester, like its young people, is vibrant. We've got a history of being innovative and creative. We're blessed with tremendous academic opportunity throughout Manchester. And I think UA92 has a very significant and different part to play in that world of academia. I think we're very fortunate that we are a truly devolved area of the country in Greater Manchester. And I think regardless of politics, we have a very energetic, enthusiastic mayor in Andy Burnham, who really wants to get things done and really just champion young people, and is really keen to stand up for what he believes and makes things happen in Manchester. And I think, therefore, as a result of that, business is really keen to expand. You know, we've got Microsoft in UA92, we've got the Hook Group coming to Trafford. Despite the challenges that we have right here, right now, there's a huge amount of investment going in Greater Manchester. And I think, therefore, with the right academic education, that collaboration with business, certainly what it means for our students is we're hoping we will provide business with potential talent that's really ready to hit the ground running, Bobby, and that's really important to us at UA92, and why that collaboration with business is so important. But I think overall, whilst I travel around the country and I travel around lots of parts of the world with my role at Vimto, I think ostensibly Manchester has real personality, you know, it has real grit, it has real determination. There's lots of examples through its recent history where we've had huge challenges to meet, but people have made sure that we overcome them together. And I think one of the things that I also observe as I work in Manchester as a business person is that there's a huge generosity by Manchester business people, men and women, to give their time to come and work with young people. You know, the amount of colleagues and connections who have responded to my reach out, can you come and work with us at UA92 by guest lecturing? You know, I've been inundated. So I think there's a real generous spirit overall, which for young people means there are opportunities, and I think investment will continue. So many good reasons around, you know, why Manchester is probably loved by people who were born here, but people who come and then either come back or decide to stay. Bobby.
I can certainly agree with that, because as someone who isn't originally from Manchester, I can only recognise how industries such as Talk, I'm one of their scholars, and all I've done is give a helping hand to students like myself in kind of getting my foot in the ladder and getting started straight away in the world of industry. So the next question, I'll link it to a question that Yvonne has asked in the chat function. She said, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self? And that links to what advice you'd give to current and future students on reaching their full potential, especially those who don't have that self-belief.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll answer the second part and then come back to the younger self after, if I may, Bobby. I think, you know, it's really hard to generalise it and just give one nugget that can help answer that question. But certainly one of the things that I really am a big advocate of is preparation. And I think preparation for whether it's a meeting, an interview, a seminar, a conference, as I said previously, I think when you're prepared, that gives you an inner sense of confidence. And I think when you've got confidence and you've done your homework, then it allows you to probably take small steps in asking questions and asking for help. Because in my experience, even now, you know, you get to certain situations, and COVID-19 is a really good one in terms of, you know, we have to ask our advisors, from a governance point of view, how should we deal with this particular conversation with a shareholder? But, you know, you'll do your preparation before. So I think that's really important. I think listening's really important as well. And I think bringing those elements together, I think then can really help you move forward. I think the advice I would have given my younger self, I sort of have three things that I always say when I'm speaking to young and mature people alike. You know, you always got to be prepared to learn. Even now, the reason I do non-exec roles or I'm joining the board of UA92 is to learn about a different sector, learn about new things. And gosh, there are things that are really different in my working life compared to sitting on the board at UA92. So always learning, be determined. You know, you've got to really be clear that at points in your career, you're going to be knocked back. Therefore, how are you going to help yourself move forward? How are you going to have that set of people around you? Who are you going to lean on to say, right, how do I come back from this? Because sharing that experience, sharing how you feel, asking for advice will help frame a thought process and the ability to deal with, you know, another difficult situation or a situation the same to that. But my third point, and this is the point I would do to my younger self, is be brave. And I had one point in my career where I thought I should have been considered for a promotion and I wasn't. And I sat on the sidelines and saw other individuals apply for the role that I thought I was ready for and prepared for, and you know, became quite disgruntled through all of that. And in the end, I built up the courage to actually go to my line manager and say, why haven't you considered for me that job? I am ready. And with a very genuine response to me, and I must have, you know, stress this was genuine. He thought because the role was, you know, more senior than what I was doing, and the children were quite young at the time, that I wouldn't want the role. So he'd made an assumption. So sometimes people aren't actually on the same wavelength, they're not actually thinking the same as you are. So at some point in your career, you will have to be brave. And note to my younger self would have been, probably in the earlier days of my career, to have had a bit more courage and stand up for myself, and, you know, not be afraid to say, yes, I am right for this role. And I got the role, and, you know, the rest is history. It was quite a turning point in my career. But I did have to be brave and put my head above the parapet on that particular occasion.
You talk about knockbacks and obviously overcoming them, and you could maybe call the current situation with the national pandemic quite a knockback for young people. So what advice would you give current and future students in preparing for success during this current lockdown, and anything they can do to kind of increase their prospects?
Yeah, I think this period's very challenging for absolutely every single one of us. And I think at the moment, coping with one day after another, probably in the same environment as I am right here, right now, for many hours a day. I think breaking your day down into some real structure is really important. So, you know, clearly it's an opportunity, and I had a session yesterday afternoon actually where there was a particular area of the market I wanted to have a real deep dive into. So I actually siphoned off some time yesterday afternoon to do some really in-depth reading and making notes. And I mean, this is my notebook at the moment. I've gone right old-fashioned because actually I find it's a really good way of concentrating and taking the information in. So I think that structure is really important, of not overloading yourself with reading. Decide what areas of interest. I am supposed to be learning Spanish as a new skill, but the furthest I've got is opening the front. But my DIY skills have got, I honestly, I'm going to be writing a manual after this. I'm very proud of some of the stuff I've looked at YouTube and I've managed to do. So I've not had to bring a person in to do it. But joking apart, I think if there's something new, I think it's really important to create that exercise time, however you want to do it. And I think it's also important to create some time in your head where you're downloading. We've gone about 3 weeks ago. I know you guys have it at UA92 free from Friday. So no video calls on a Friday for the team at all, because you get to a point where it's absolute Zoom or Microsoft Teams overload, frankly. And then really my other bit of advice is, I think you can be all consumed by the news at the moment, I've really dialed down the time during the day when I'm listening and intaking to news. So I think, you know, it's really extraordinary times. And, you know, I'll be totally honest, there's some Mondays when I think, God, I don't want to go into the office again. Actually, once I start doing this and I start interacting with my colleagues or whatever else I'm doing, your energy levels come back up and off you go again. But I think it's quite hard. And I wouldn't want to overload anybody at this point in time. I think, you know, getting through it the best you can with some structure, some learning, perhaps looking at, you know, TED Talks or lots of material online is probably the best way to cope. But make sure you look after yourselves, give yourself some downtime as well, because I found it very consuming at the moment, and it's very difficult to break work and home life. Funnily enough, my commute's an awful commute across the M62, but actually it gives me working up time in the morning, and then it gives me downtime coming home. And at the moment, you know, there's neither going on in my working life.
Some great advice there, and I'm just going to finish off with the big one. We're just overlapping into Bilal's time, but I'm sure he won't mind.
Sure. He nicked some of ours.
Yeah, exactly. Payback. So I've spoken a lot about why as a student I chose to study at UA92. So I'd like to ask you, as chair of board of UA92, why UA92, and what advice you'd give to students or parents of students who are considering studying here.
Yeah, there's sort of 4 elements, and I will be reasonably swift because I know time's pressing on. UA92, there's a really big link to Vimto. We work in a marketplace that is surrounded by massive global brands. Coke, Pepsi, Lucozade, Red Bull. But we continue to outperform the market, despite being over 110 years old. And the reason we do that is we're disruptive in the marketplace. And that's exactly the proposition we have at UA92. Vimto is unique in its taste. No matter how much the supermarkets try and copy us, they can't. The recipe's not changed since when it was invented in 1908. And again, a real comparator to UA92. We're unique in the way we deliver higher education to our students, and therefore real synergy between UA92 and the brand. When I chaired the Regional Council for the CBI, constant feedback in those 3 years has been the lack of skills in the Northwest. Yet every time I try to bring academia and business together to discuss what that lack of skills, make it a tangible proposition for me. Every hurdle we sort of came up against was the very different way in which business talks about life and its colleagues and how it conducts business, and the purpose of academia in a traditional sense and how it talks about it. So I really began a passion for how are we going to bring business and academia together, which again is exactly the proposition of UA92. And the fact that we will work and have worked with our business partners to co-build those curriculums at UA92 means you guys are actually learning what you need to know so that when you go out in the workplace, you're really ready to play a part in that business from day one. Coming back right to the beginning, I didn't go to university for those 2 reasons, but I was encouraged to go to the polytechnics to have a look round, and I was actually accepted at Birmingham Poly, can you believe? But I just felt, coming from a small town in the east of England, I just wasn't ready to cope with being in a big city, Bobby. You know, I didn't feel mature enough. I didn't feel comfortable. I've done quite a lot of guest lecturing at Manchester Met, massive affinity with Manchester Met. That's where Alex went and had a fabulous experience. So again, life's about giving back when you become more experienced. But even me walking into those massive lecture theatres, you know, in my late 50s with all the wealth of information I've got, it's so intimidating. So I think, you know, I don't know whether you guys have got it from the video, but the welcoming atmosphere of campus, the accessibility, the almost family feel that we've got on campus at UA92. UA92 is a really different delivery of style. I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything there, Bobby. And then finally, really, I did want to be a teacher. And actually, by doing a bit of lecturing with you guys, I came in earlier in the year to speak with the business studies students. I guess I'm living a bit of that original dream in a different way. But, you know, I think if you've got a passion for an area, and I do feel passionate about education, and I do feel passionate about making sure that that is linked appropriately to business. So those are the 4 sort of strands of why. I think as a parent, one of the things that has surprised me talking to you guys at different times in the last few months is about the structure of your days, being a morning or afternoon student. And every one of you that I've spoken to have said that you find that really beneficial because you come from sixth form, and actually having that structure in the day and using all those hours meaningful, you've all found really beneficial. Clearly it has added benefits then of you know, whether you're working, caring, or whatever, as Bilal said. But I think as a parent, knowing that you feel you've got structure and purpose to your day, as opposed to going into this big wide world that is uni and not quite sure what's happening, I think as a parent is really reassuring. Your personal development, your well-being's being looked after. I think as a parent, once your child goes to uni, it's sort of, they're into the abyss, and for a little while it's really hard to reach out and connect them. So I think for me as a parent, knowing that pastoral care was there is really important. But finally, we all want value for money, and we all want to know that education that our child is getting will make him or her more qualified and able to get the job that they want to do and pursue the career that they want to do. So fundamentally, as a parent, that would be a huge consideration for me. But you tell me what you think, Bobby, before we have to.
Well, I don't know. I think we've only got 1 minute left, but I was just going to wrap up with one quick question, but we can both answer because it's in the Q&A box. And I thought if we answer it in one word, then we can pass back to Bilal. And it is, what do you think the culture of UA92 is? And you mentioned that it was like family. Is there any other one word that you could give to kind of sum it up?
No, I think it comes, you're living it, you're in it. So I think it's, rather than what I think it is, it'd be much better if you said what it is.
I'd say supportive. That is, I mean, that's a great way to finish, isn't it? I think everyone's there to support you. And I'll pass back to my mentor who's there to support me. So Bilal to finish. So thank you very much, Marnie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Marnie. Well, I could have probably listened to you both have a conversation for another hour. Such an inspiring conversation, and so much great wealth of experience that you shared there, Marnie, and lots of great advice. And I just want to give a shout out to Bobby as well, you know, one of our pioneering students. Not had a huge amount of time to prep for this, and we can see why we all know that in the future it's not going to be life stories with Piers Morgan, but let's try and get those life stories with Bobby Haggraft in the future. Amazing job, guys. Thank you so much. I wish we had more time to listen to more. Who knows? Perhaps we'll have you back at some point in the future. But that's it more or less from us. Just a couple of things from me. If you want to find out more about University Academy 92, if you want to learn more about some of what you heard from Marnie, some of what I tried to summarise for you briefly in more detail, then go onto our website, www.ua92.ac.uk. If you want to join more events and hear more details about specific aspects of what it is that we do, then just put a / and events on the end of what you're seeing on your screen there. And again, you can get to our social media across Instagram, Twitter. Katie, our social media guru, is all over that, and we'll be very, very happy to put you in contact with the right person at UA92 to give you all the support and help that you need. And hopefully some of you will take the decision to join us in September or at one of our other entry points as a student. Final thing to just mention that we do have an Instagram live next week on Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's next Wednesday, 20th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So get onto Instagram, join us there for a live conversation, leave comments, ask questions with the team. And then we've also got some big events coming up in June. We've got a big open day, a virtual open day, which we'd love to welcome you all along to. And then we've also got our applicant visit day as well coming up in June. So lots of things happening. You can find out all the details again on the website, on the events page, and across our social media. A final big thank you from me to everybody who took the time out to join us today. I hope you all are well. I hope you're all keeping safe and continue to do so. And I look forward to when we have the opportunity to speak with you again. Take care, and all best wishes from me and the rest of the team here at University Academy 92. Bye-bye.